Welcome, everyone, to episode 4 of Crime 709. I'm Andrea.
And I'm Alicia.
And on this week, we are going to be covering a story that involves 3 people, and it's going to be a murder-suicide. It's pretty sad, but we're gonna tell you what it's all about.
Yeah, it's basically like a double murder-suicide.
It is. Ugh.
And it takes place across 2 different countries.
Yeah, it spans the continent.
Yeah, so it just it had like a ripple effects for everyone.
It's true. It's so true. Before we get into that, Alicia, I do want to do a couple shout-outs.
Okay.
I wanted to shout out to Steph Conway and Kristen Sellers on Facebook. They did some commenting on our Facebook page. That was really cool of them.
Perfect. And I would like to shout out Holly Marsh and Alyssa Buckmaster, who also commented and shared our post this week.
Nice.
And there's also another fellow podcast that I would like to give a shout out to. So back in January, the Minds of Madness podcast, actually, they tweeted us and they said, at Crime 709, what are you at, guys? I didn't even know there was a true crime podcast coming off the rock. So we just wanted to say thank you for following us. And also, these guys will be attending CrimeCon. And if you enter Madness when you go to purchase your tickets, you get 10% off your ticket price.
Oh my God, that's so cool.
Yeah, for any of their listeners. So they're pretty awesome. They're one of my favorite podcasts for sure.
All right, what are you at, Minds of Madness?
What are you at, guys?
What are you at? Marvelous. So going forward, this week's case, Andrew Bagby, Zachary Turner, and Shirley Turner. Awful story, but let's start off where it naturally starts off. Let's go with Andrew David Bagby. He was born the 25th of September in 1973. He's the only child of Kathleen and David Bagby. They're from Sunnyvale, California in the States.
Right, and actually, I think Kathleen and David, they were trying to have a baby for a long time. And I think they were trying for 2 years or more. And then when they found out they were pregnant with Andrew, it was just like he was their miracle baby. He was like what they worked really hard for.
They put a lot of investment into him.
Yeah, they put a lot of time and work into that one.
That is so sweet. I know that a lot of friends felt the same way, felt that he was such a good person and put a lot of that same investment into him friendship-wise. A lot of people say he was charismatic, a good storyteller, laid back, approachable, very intelligent. People saying he's selfless, kind, and caring. A lot of friends said he enjoyed photography and playing pool, which are kind of cool things to get into on the side.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that a lot of friends mentioned that they wanted him to be their best man when they were going to get married. That was like a dream come true for them if he could be the best man for them, which is a really sweet sentiment. And I know that through all my research that came up so many times.
Yeah, he was just like super personable. Everybody wanted him to be a buddy. I know that he has a friend, Kurt, who actually did this documentary on Netflix that you can watch.
Ooh, the Dear Zachary one.
Yes, Dear Zachary. I think it's a letter to a
baby.
Stop.
It's actually called Dear Zachary, a letter to a son about his father. So that is a really sweet sentiment. I think that a lot of people also said he was pretty funny too, because apparently he always wore shorts. And I know one guy who literally always wore shorts every day of the week, all through winter, all through summer. And I think it was the same pair of shorts. They were like these beige pants. This guy knows who he is. If he's listening to our podcast, I hope you're still not wearing shorts right now, because it's done. Don't do that. Nobody wears shorts in the winter anymore.
Just stop.
Just stop it. Anyways, moving right along, he applied to, not this weird old guy that used to wear shorts, but the Andrew Bagby,
right,
who wore shorts, applied to medical school in the States. I unfortunately didn't get any exceptions there, but applied to Memorial University here in beautiful St. John's. Mm-hmm. And he got approved. He got accepted. He was on his way. I know that when he came here, he was, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, he was in a relationship and engaged to Heather Arnold, and I believe she's a doctor now, so Dr. Arnold. But they did separate, and their breakup was pretty bad on him, I think. But he did find a relationship in a woman who is not from Newfoundland, but she lived here. Her name is Dr. Shirley Turner, and she was a resident MD at Memorial University's medical program. So that gets us into...
That brings us right to Shirley.
Mm-hmm.
So these are the key players in this case. So Shirley, she was born January 28th in 1961. She was raised with 3 siblings in Wichita, Kansas, in the United States, and she moved to Newfoundland with her mother after her parents separated. So Shirley's family lived a frugal lifestyle, and I think they were on welfare. Shirley had 3 children. Her first child was born in 1981. Both of those children were actually raised by their fathers. She wanted to pursue her medical degree, so she didn't, I don't know, we kind of say selfishly.
I mean, you know what? Sometimes people do want to take advantage of their time that they have with their careers, and I totally get that. It's totally fine to take your time. I think that the step here is that she left her children, like dropped them off at the front door of the fathers, and then started her whole life then by herself doing her medical.
Right. Like, we wouldn't say that Shirley Turner has this maternal instinct that we, said Diana Saunders had last week.
Right.
I don't think she feels that same connection to her kids.
Yeah, I think I get exactly what you're saying. Yep.
Right? Like, I just feel like she just doesn't have that in her.
Yep.
But anyways, so after she meets Andrew Bagby, they take off to the States. So he moves to Syracuse, and she moves to Iowa.
Okay, so the events, as it were, so they began, like you said, dating. Apparently, through all of this, like through the meetings, because Andrew, when he moved to Newfoundland, was obviously totally involved in the lifestyle here. He had lots of friends. I don't personally know anybody who was friends with him, but I know that through my research, there was a lot of people who came forward and were so excited to have met him and known his life. And so when they met him and knew what type of a person he was and how silly and fun and excitable and joyful he was, meeting Shirley to be his girlfriend at the time was like people kind of were like, ugh, what are they doing together? Like an odd match.
Right. Not only were they an odd match, but there was also like a big age difference. He was only 28 and she was 40.
Yeah.
And
nothing wrong with an age difference.
Nothing wrong. But when the girl seems like she got a couple screws loose and she's, 12 years older, you start to wonder.
Exactly. Totally agree. So yeah, Andrew graduated from MUN and then moved to Syracuse, New York to undertake surgical residency. And like you said, Shirley moved to Iowa. Mm-hmm. So they kind of had like a little bit of a long distance relationship for a while. But I think through some sort of like jigs and reels, they didn't get along. And I think after one event and after another event, they just decided, Andrew was like, you know what, I'm done with you. I don't really want to go out with you anymore. You're making unusual sexual comments. You're not getting on with my friends. Like, we're just done. Like,
yeah. I think it was like this particular episode you're talking about where he actually did finalize and break up with her. It was about a wedding.
Yes.
So he wasn't going to invite her to the wedding, and then she just called. And anyway, so finally he gave in and did invite her to the wedding, but she was acting like super possessive. I know that.
All over him.
Yeah, trying to, I don't want to say claim, but basically like mark her territory.
Right.
And there was something in the documentary that said she was super jealous even over the bride.
Yes. What did the bride say?
She just asked him if he wanted a drink.
And then Shirley was like, trying to hit on my man now, are ya?
Yeah,
something like that. Listen, guys, if you want to...
Allegedly.
If you do want to figure out exactly that, you should watch that documentary.
Right.
But, so Andrew drove Shirley to the airport this one day and was like, yep, we're breaking up. He sent her on the plane. She left to go back to Iowa.
Right.
But...
Yeah, but she got in her car...
When she got to Iowa...
And turned around and drove 16 hours back to his house, knocked on his door. I mean...
Like a mad woman.
Yes!
I mean, that's 16 hours. Like, I'd be like texting, calling, maybe. But apparently she did that too. She called pretty well the entire time.
I have no idea what this girl was thinking. Look. If you're going to drive 16 hours to someone's house that just dumped you, take a minute, pull over, think a minute, do some self-reflection. Is it worth it?
Yeah, he just broke up with me.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
That should have been, she should just like turn around and gone.
Yes.
Oh, and if you hear that clicking, that's Pepper.
That's Pepper.
Everyone say hi to Pepper, our resident pooch.
Pooch Yep. Didn't know what I was going to say that.
Podcast pooch.
Podcast pooch. That's what she is. On November the 5th, Andrew obviously then opened his door to find Shirley back at his house and was obviously visibly shaken by that experience of having just dropped her off at the airport, and here she is literally back on your front door, like, knock, 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 let me in.
Right.
So he was apprehensive, but I guess thought nothing of it.
No. And I just want to do like a little rewind. So we're going from November 5th back to October. So in October, Shirley bought a Phoenix Arms HB-22 handgun,
right,
with .22 caliber ammunition, and she began taking firearms lessons.
Key piece of information here.
Right. So throughout this period of, everything, it was the wedding, it was the driving, she was showing obsessive behavior. She was incessantly calling him. She was constantly throwing like abuse at him down the, over the phone. And so then he had enough. And then that brings us to November 5th.
Crazy. So yeah, on November 5th, like I said, all that happened. Andrew went to work that day, apparently just super shaken by the whole experience that she was, throwing herself essentially at him through the doors of his house. And his friend was like, whose friend who works with him was like, don't, just, come over. You can meet with her, but come over to my house afterwards. Don't go anywhere with her alone.
Yeah. So first, I think he said, don't even go there.
Yeah.
Just leave it.
Like a good friend would say that.
Yeah. But then Andrew, obviously, with his big heart.
Kind, caring.
Yeah, he probably just didn't want to leave her hanging. So he was like, just to calm her down, talk some sense into her, he was going to go meet her.
Yeah. So that leads us to November the 6th, 2001.
Right. So on November 6th, 2001, at 6:50 in the morning, a passerby found Andrew Bagby's car and body in Keystone Park in a parking lot. And he had been shot 5 times, once in the face, once in the chest, once in the back of the head, and twice in the buttocks.
Guess what? The bullets that were used to kill Andrew were found to be that of the same that Shirley Turner's gun took.
I mean, listen.
And guess where Shirley Turner was at this time?
Well, I can only imagine that she was probably homesick in bed.
She was back in Iowa, sick in bed.
I just don't understand. If you're going to...
I'd probably be sick after I killed someone too, but there's a bit of a difference.
Definitely a bit of... But I don't think she even was sick after she killed him.
She wasn't sick.
But anyways, listen, if you're gonna kill someone, don't kill someone. But if you're gonna kill someone, don't use the gun that you recently purchased, that your firearm instructor was helping you use.
Yep.
Don't drive for 16 hours.
Leaving your footprints and fingerprints and cell phone calls and emails and everything all across the country.
And that's the thing. So she calls in sick to her job the next day because she was homesick.
Right.
So to make her alibi, she calls in sick from Andrew's house.
Right.
So she was in Iowa, but she made her sick phone call from Andrew's house.
However, when the police called her to tell her, basically give her the bad news that a relation of hers had passed away, she was like, "Oh my God, oh no, that's crazy." And he's like, "Well, where were you?" And she was like, "Oh, well, I'm home in Iowa." And he's like, "Okay, are you telling me the truth? Because so da 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 da." And she was like, "Oh yeah, okay, actually, in fact." And then she lied some about where she was and how her story changed and...
Right.
I'm not making any sense, am I?
You're making a little bit of sense. I'm just going to clear it up.
Clear it up. I'm heated about it.
You're heated. You're fuming. Okay. So basically she said she was in bed and then she couldn't kill him because she was homesick. Then when the police go, Shirley, well, think about it. How did your cell phone ping off of all these towers along the way? How did this bullet that matches your gun get there? She goes, oh, okay, right. So I was there and I did meet him in the parking lot, but I didn't kill him. I gave my gun to Andrew and he put it in the trunk of his car and then I didn't see him after. And then she also goes ahead. So after this murder, she does drive back home to Iowa or wherever she is. She calls him and leaves him a voicemail.
From her house.
Hi, haven't seen ya in a couple of days.
Love you. Miss you.
Come on?
I can't even believe. She's got to be... I don't like to talk about the dearly departed, but I don't think that she's a very dearly departed person. I feel like this person is obviously is dealing with some issues, some attachment issues maybe. I'm going to peg it. I'm going to say it out there. Some attachment issues.
Yeah.
The man wanted to break up with her. She was like, not having it. If I can't have you, no one can have you. Mm-hmm. That's obviously what happened.
It's just like...
And she shot him in cold blood and then tried to turn it around and say, no, it wasn't me.
No.
Fingerprints are there. There's your gun. You were there.
You were checking, bitch. You were checking your eBay account from his computer.
Like, come on. We know you were there.
No. Anyways.
Very interestingly enough, though, like, drawing on her and her, like, relationships and how she acts in relationships, apparently she was with a man in Newfoundland who was, like, 9 years her junior. Mm-hmm. She likes young men, I think. After they broke up, he moved elsewhere, obviously, probably to try to get away from her, but she, like, inundated him with phone calls. Mm-hmm. So in 1997... she went to Halifax to visit him and confronted him and apparently struck him in the jaw with her high heel. I don't know. When he was interviewed by the police, because I think he obviously went to the police to complain about her, he expressed fear to the police of, quote, what Dr. Turner would do next, unquote. That's from someone who obviously wasn't in a super long relationship with him. Mm-hmm. And apparently... she attempted suicide when she was with this man. She purchased 65 milligrams of over-the-counter drugs and tried to do like a suicide attempt. She showed up at his house in this extravagant black dress, carrying a bouquet of red roses and 2 suicide notes in her purse. Like, this person is dramatic. Come on, this is ridiculous.
So dramatic. And then the suicide note. So one was for the man.
Yes.
And one was for her psychiatrist. And in it she states, I'm not evil, I'm sick.
Like,
and then after her suicide attempt fails, she goes home and disguises her voice and calls the guy.
Right.
Dr. Turner is dead. We don't know what she sounded like. I'm just assuming.
I think that was a really good, like, fake.
Right? Come on.
So, I mean, this just obviously just giving an insight on who this person is. I think she has... like I said, some attachment issues, trying to, control those people around her.
Don't minimize her attachment issues here, Andrea. I mean, come on. She might have some. She's
got a lot of attachment issues.
She's overflowing with attachment issues.
This is very true. But for people, like, the whole idea of abandoning your children to their fathers... and I feel so horrible for these kids. I know that over the past couple of years, they've gotten so much media about this. I'm sure they have. Maybe they're in hiding. We don't know. Mm-hmm. But I feel so bad that they've had to watch this over and over and over again about their mother. Your mother is always going to be your mother. And no matter if that person is a bad person or a good person, which we can never really tell who's bad or good in the moment. We can always just assume actions are bad and good. The actions that she did were bad for the majority of the part in this particular scenario. And for her children to have to live through that constantly with all of this news, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to you and your family, and I'm so sorry to the Bagby's family. So I just want to say that out there because I know that this is obviously a lot to go through, especially growing up with this over your shoulders.
Right.
So sorry, kids.
But it's also a good story that's to be told because, as we will find out at the end of this case, there's a lot of lessons learned by it, and a lot of people actually benefited from this down the line.
Right. That's
so
true.
We are sorry. Like, we're sorry that we have to keep going through it. We don't want to have to keep bringing it up, but it is good to be informative. And if you can find a silver lining in anything, it's that it could be informative.
It's so true. I want to go back to Shirley.
Yeah.
There are some things that, like, people have said about her over the years, and, like, I know that these are all just they're probably hearsay, but a lot of this stuff is documented as well through research. But some coworkers said that they were scared to give her feedback or hold discussions with her because of her reaction. They felt manipulated.
Yeah, patients complain about her, a lot of them.
Yes, and attacked. So apparently ex-boyfriends had said she... basically, I think physically abusive, emotionally explosive were some words that are being noted. So anyways, she kills Andrew.
She kills him in cold blood because she's a jealous bitch. Then she goes back to Iowa, hops on a plane. So while the police are trying to investigate and actually get some tangible evidence to pin this crime on her, because at that time, they just had speculation.
Right.
So no solid fact. They knew that she was in the area. They knew that she was lying, but I don't think they could really hold her.
They had some links.
Yeah. So she abandons all of her earthly possessions, basically.
Responsibilities.
And hops on a plane back here, home to Newfoundland, Canada. Mm-hmm. And this is when we have to deal with all of this mess.
So it seems like an escape, really, because obviously she's got the American police hot on her tail.
Yes.
She's like, best place to go, Newfoundland? I mean, I don't know. I would never have thought that, but
because she comes here, she has to be extradited. They can't just call her up, put out a warrant. She needs to be extradited. It's a whole process. But Andrew Bagby's parents were told that even though she fled, they should have her back in the States within 2 weeks.
That's right. Okay, rewind back. Andrew Bagby's parents, and I know that a lot of people have watched the documentary if they're listening to this podcast or have done some research about this, because this was a huge case a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But Andrew Bagby's parents are apparently the sweetest people in the world. Like, they just look like the cutest couple. They look so caring and so compassionate, and obviously, like we had mentioned before, so much love for their son. So much love for him.
So much.
So putting all that in your minds going forward, Shirley is now in Newfoundland, and the Bagby parents are still in the States dealing with the death of their son.
Right.
Shirley gets to Newfoundland. She is arrested actually on the day that she gets to Newfoundland, because they did have a warrant out for her arrest, so they arrested her. And because the Newfoundland Justice Gail Welsh at the time believed that Shirley wasn't a threat to society, she was just basically a threat to her ex-lover, who she already killed anyway. This person, Shirley, was out on bail.
Can I just make a bigger deal about that?
Yes, you can, because it's a big fucking deal.
Let me just make a bigger deal, because listen, if I'm mentally unstable enough to shoot my boyfriend 5 times and then flee a country, who's to say that I'm not a risk to someone else? She has a history. She was reported for child abuse. She was reported for stalking. She had suicide attempts. She had all of these things. And then you're going to say, and I'm pretty sure this is almost a direct quote. I'm paraphrasing. I'm paraphrasing. She said she already killed the one person she wanted to kill.
The Justice Gail Welsh said that?
I don't want to say for sure, because
Close on.
Yep. Whoever it was that let her out on bail that one time said she's already killed the person she wanted to kill. So she's definitely not gonna...
This is ridiculous. And get this. In exchange for her freedom, Turner was required to post $75,000 bail. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money for someone who literally just graduated from med school. They probably have like hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt. And no doubt she didn't have that kind of money.
Nope.
And in fact, I believe that she did actually have a coworker. No, actually, sorry, it wasn't a coworker. Her psychiatrist. Right. Posted the bail for her, $75,000, Dr. John Doucette.
Dr. John, smart
was a former coworker with her at Memorial University. He posted the bail for her, and she then got out of jail. Great. So nice.
Now she's out.
But she did have to do a couple other things, like, turn in her passports and report to the RNC once a week and promise not to leave the I promise I'm not going to leave. I'm so good with promises.
Promise you're not going to kill anyone. It's kind of just a rule of life.
And of course, the last request was to make no attempt with the Bagby family, because obviously they're dealing with their own issues. They just lost their son.
Right.
Moving right along.
Now, in December, Shirley announced that she was... drumroll please. Pregnant with Andrew's child.
Oh my god. It's almost like a soap opera. I feel like the truth is stranger than fiction.
Oh my god. Pregnant.
So, and of course, we don't know obviously if the child is Andrew's at this time. But
right. We have to wait until the DNA test results come back after the baby is born.
And in this meantime, the Kathleen and David Bagby they're like kind of getting their hopes up about this because they're kind of really excited. Like, this is a little baby that's potentially their grandchild.
Yes. And
So
not only that, but like, what are the chances
I know.
that they're not going to get to have this kid? Their mother is suspected of murder. They
Right.
should have this baby.
Oh my God. If anybody, it should be them.
Right.
They just lost their son. Anyways, flash forward, the Bagbys actually pick up all of their possessions and move to Newfoundland so that they can be closer, obviously, for the trials, for the it's the sentencing of Shirley, and also to see if this baby is theirs.
Right. And if it is, to spend time with this baby. They want to be involved, hands-on grandparents.
No. So the baby was born on the 18th of July in 2002, and Shirley named him Zachary Andrew Turner.
Right.
So that was a kind of a nice little sweet thought to put Andrew in there. Obviously it's a respectful thing to do, yes. However, Shirley named him Andrew. She had murdered the father. Anyways, that's another topic for a whole different situation.
I just feel like...
It's like a stab.
Yeah.
And not really a literal stab. It's like a figurative
Right.
A figurative stab at the fact that I killed your dad.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't want that. And also, this is probably like way out to lunch or out to left field or whatever these things are. But you hear so many stories about, I'm going to get pregnant and he's going to stay with me.
Yes.
Okay, so this is what I think is going on in my little head here, okay?
Okay.
I believe that if she knew she was pregnant before she murdered him, she never would have murdered him. Because when she has his kid, she has him for life.
That's true.
That's what these crazy people believe. So if she would have gotten pregnant and knew she was pregnant, I think he would still be alive.
You know what? Yeah.
Because she has him by the balls, basically, for the rest of his life. Child support, she's always in his life. The only thing to do is go through lawyers and lawyers and lawyers.
Yeah, and she'd probably, push that along as far as she could.
Absolutely. She did it with the parents.
That's true.
She tried to, basically, she didn't have to pay for her lawyer, so she kept going back and forth, custody battles, all this kind of stuff.
And even for the murder of Andrew, there was so many court dates made and this and that. And it's like every time she went to court, it was like, nope, okay, let's post another date for court. Another date for court. And it just went on and on and on.
There was just like loopholes and everything everywhere. And basically she was just, I feel like, taking this free ride and trying to get those Bagbys to run out of money.
It's a sin. It's disgusting, actually, is what is not a sin. It is disgusting.
Yeah.
Through all the legal pursuits, Turner persistently refused to allow Kathleen and David to even see their grandson. In fact, they were there at the hospital when Zachary was born, on the other side of the door, and Shirley would not let them inside. You're not allowed to see this child. He's mine, not yours. Don't get your mind too close to it.
Possession again. It's her
So
baby.
true. Never even thought about it like that, Alicia.
It's almost like every man in her life she needs to own. And if she can't own them, she's going to kill you.
Oh my God, it's so sad.
Anyways.
Breaking my heart here.
It is. So we do find out that, I guess you've figured out by now that Zachary is Andrew's baby.
Right.
So he is, for sure, Andrew's baby.
And if you ever see, sorry to interject, but if
No.
you ever see pictures of the two of them together for our listeners, oh my God, like they're like the spitting image of each other. It literally looks like he fell from his father's tree.
Yeah.
He's the apple that fell from his father's tree. He's so cute. The chubbiest little arms, the cutest little face. I literally want to eat him. I'm going to take a bite right out of his cheeks. So cute.
Right. And then if you do watch this documentary, even if you just want to watch it, not necessarily for the information, but
If you
just
want to watch it for a good cry, maybe, because that's
Right?
all I did when I watched it.
And then you can also get a better understanding of the relationship between Zachary and his grandmother. They were, I don't want to say inseparable, but basically inseparable. And I feel like it's put out there in the documentary, and I don't know how one-sided it is, but he would always choose the grandmother over his mother, Shirley.
Actually, I have something really interesting, and I have a quote that I want to present. This is when, because it's so true, it's playing right off of that. For Zachary's first birthday, and I know we're jumping far ahead, but for Zachary's first birthday, they went out to McDonald's, and Shirley's going through something. She's going through like this, like we had mentioned before, this attachment issues. And Zachary always found so much joy when he was with his grandparents. And I think and of course with Kathleen, she's so maternal and so in love with this child, as well as David. But Zachary, like, rejoiced in his grandmother. And I think that made Shirley super jealous. So in a direct quote, he says, Shirley saying to Kathleen, "He obviously loves you more than me, so why don't you take him?" End quote. Like, there's the quote in there.
Yeah.
So that to me is like, that's like a childish thing to say. Okay, no, I'm sorry. Like, if this was my child and every time, say, you came over to my house, Alicia, my child was like, "Oh, Alicia's here," I'd be like, I would never say to you, "He obviously likes you more. Why don't you just take him?" I'd be like, "Oh, my child loves you. That's so sweet. I'm the mother. I'm going to take full responsibility for my child because I'm the mother. I'm not going to pawn him off." Or I just kind of feel like that's a weird quote. It's a weird comment. It's just weird all around.
It is really weird to say, but also at the same time, she said it, but she also didn't mean it because the grandparents did want him.
Yes. Oh, it's like a little cat and mouse toy game.
You want him? Take him. But I'm not going to let you take him. I'm going to make you go to court constantly. I'm going to make you have hour-long supervision. These grandparents, they had to sit in a room with the woman who murdered their child for visitation. They had to have phone conversations with the mother that murdered their child. They had to buy diapers and formula for the baby, and she murdered their child.
Like, I can't.
These people must be the strongest people on the planet. How could you even be in a room with someone that murdered your son and not vomit every time?
Know. Like, I want to vomit here just thinking about this whole scenario. So after everything was all said and done, the grandparents were allowed, like you said, a visit. I believe it was like 1 hour a week in Unified Family Court. And so apparently as well, this is kind of interesting. Every time Zachary would come back from a visit with his grandparents, Shirley would make comments to like social workers and say, "Oh, he's so fussy after he visits with them," and complaining about, generally complaining about their presence with Zachary because, he's not the same. He's really fussy now. I think it's almost like a direct stab at them, like they must be bad people, not me.
Yeah, I think what she was trying to do there was set them up for failure.
Yes.
To just not have a chance to have custody of their child, because I know she did serve some time. She served less than 2 months actually in total for this whole thing. But while she was incarcerated, they had full custody, or they had custody of the child. But they had to take the baby, Zachary, in any weather condition, bring him in for visitation. She still got to have visits with her child and everything. And she would say some things like, "Oh, I think you're a very good babysitter, but I worry when he's with you." And she would make these little jabs all the time, like just calling them straight up babysitters. And they were just at her beck and call. If she wanted to see the baby, they had to bring the baby.
Yes, and I think there was something in the stipulation as well for like 1 hour, once a day phone calls with Zachary, who can't talk and probably has no idea what a cell phone or a phone is.
No.
He's got this thing up to his face and she's like, Zachary, can you hear me? Mommy loves you."
I can just hear it now.
It's actually, she has a chilling voice.
And it just makes me want to claw my eyes out.
Yeah. I'm like, yep, can't deal, moving right along. This woman just irks me. So yeah, November 14th is when she went into the Clarenville Women's Correctional Facility.
Right.
Awaiting news from the U.S. to be prosecuted or whatnot.
So, and I just want to also put in here, because I don't think we mentioned it back when we were talking about the investigation in the States, what's happening now through all of this custody battle and everything here in Canada, in the States, the police are trying to actually track down her whereabouts every night and confirm her alibi, that she actually, they want to make sure what she's saying is true. So they do realize that her cell phone had pinged, but back at that time, you had to check every one of those cell phone towers manually.
Individually, yeah.
Yep. So they had to go through all these cell phone towers, and it took over 2 weeks just to confirm that she had even
had the cell phone ping off these towers.
Right. So all this is happening in Canada, but also in the States. They're still doing their investigation into Andrew Bagby's murder.
Right.
So they're not. It's like two things happening at once here.
So that brings us probably to, I guess, a day when she was released. I don't know entirely when she was released from the Clarenville facility.
We don't really know the exact date on that, but we do know that
on the 18th of August in 2003, she was due to have custody of Zachary. And so she took him with her to a spot in CBS. I think this was like in the nighttime. She took him with her, and I know the name of the road. I don't know if it's well known to everyone here, but it is Perrins Road in CBS, and that's when I was in high school, because I was in grade 11 in 2003. And I remember the next morning waking up to so much news. Like, basically CBS was a buzz. There was so much going on. I feel like driving down the road, you couldn't get through that whole intersection. It was blocked solid with news and police. It was crazy. Because what had happened was,
well, Shirley drugged her son. Well, she dumped these pills at a van and crushed them up into his formula and gave him a bottle. So he passed out. Then she took the drugs herself, strapped baby Zachary Andrew Bagby to her stomach, and jumped into the Atlantic Ocean.
like, what?
I mean...
Can we have, like... I feel like that moment of silence that we had was a real moment of silence for me personally to remember that sweet little child. That's unbelievable. I have shivers just thinking that someone could do that to their child. Strap on, mom loves you. Mommy loves you.
No.
Do you?
Mommy is a selfish, vindictive bitch and doesn't want anyone to have her child. And so if she can't live, then neither can he. And, I mean, like Andrea said, the province went wild. And then there was all these allegations. Which justice system failed him? Which justice system? Was it the U.S. government that didn't get her soon enough? Was it Child Protective Services that didn't take the son away? Was it the RNC or RCMP who didn't hold her? Was it the psychiatrist who paid her bail? Who is at fault here? I mean, I feel like all along the way, everyone failed this family. I think they were failed from the moment their son died till the moment Shirley and Zachary were found in the ocean. And I just think that it was just terrible for them. Now, they did do one thing that kind of, I don't want to say like redeemed them, but everyone had been following the story, so they all knew what was happening. When they found the baby, when they found Zachary in the ocean.
Yes, and just a note on that, it was a couple from Ontario who were down vacationing. Like, oh, like, don't want to find a baby and like a dead body on the beach. They said that the baby was completely unharmed, which was nice when they found him. But I mean, finally, you hear my scoffs through the microphone. I feel shaken up entirely by this. Anyway, continue.
Anyways, so they took Shirley out, bagged her up, took her away, but they actually took the time to wrap up baby Zachary in a blanket, and they swaddled him and kept him as far away from his mother as possible. So finally, I mean, in life,
rather unfortunately, he was close to her in that death moment. But in death, like, let's respect him and keep him as far away as possible. And that should, retrospect, that should have been done the entire time through.
Yeah.
Keep this child as far away as possible from this woman.
I don't understand.
Neither do I. A lot of good things, like you had said, Alicia, a lot of good things did come from this, though. And after all of this was said and done, the Bagbys, like Kathleen and David, are more than likely, I can't even imagine, out of their minds. The fact that they lost their son to this woman, and the fact that they just lost their beautiful grandson to this woman, like you said before earlier, where did they get the strength? I have no idea.
It's an emotional roller coaster. You can't have a baby. You have a baby. That baby turns into a doctor murdered. Then you are gifted in the craziest circumstances with a grandchild. So you're getting a little piece of your son back and you're fighting for custody and you're excited.
And you've got a community of people. Everybody in Newfoundland, I think, was cheering for this family to get them.
Supporting them. And then, so you're happy you have this piece of your son back. And then that part of him is murdered again by the same woman. And now their world is just, I feel like you're just starting to build yourself back up just for her to tear you back down. And
that's a good idea of who this woman was. She'd build you up and then tear you down.
I can't.
Right?
I just can't.
After all this, like we had said, the Bagbys were still involved, but they were so filled with, I don't know what you're filled with at this point in time, but they were so filled with the idea that they need to continue on for their family. Because, I mean, when you're in that state of mind, I'm sure you want to go further and further into maybe a depression. They didn't. They channeled all of that, and they fought even harder to get things changed. And, in fact, in 2000 and... Oh, sorry, I actually don't have the date, so we'll scratch the date. After all of this had happened... they fought so hard that they were able to come up with a bill for Canada's criminal code. The bill is C-464, or commonly known as Zachary's Bill. It was added as an amendment for the right to refuse bail to someone charged with a serious crime who is deemed a potential danger to children under the age of 18. So that would have given, if this bill had been in effect when Zachary was still alive and when Shirley was still alive, then they would have taken Zachary immediately away from the mother because, this is what this is all about. This is the point of this bill. Right.
And basically this bill, it just came into play because they really needed to find out if his murder was preventable.
Right. So true.
So, I mean, all of this happened. So this review came in and... it was just decided that his death was preventable.
100%.
And lots of key players in this were definitely accountable and have to carry that with them. Where was Child Protective Services?
Right.
Why was she let out of jail? They had to do this investigation, and it was determined that his death very well could have been prevented, and that's like a hard pill to swallow.
It's so true. And some people did in fact get a big slap on the hand. You know what, probably not even a slap on the hand, as hard as they should have. For Dr. John Doucette, who actually gave Shirley, we're not going to allow her the fact of doctor anymore. She's just Shirley now at this point.
Shirley Turner, because we don't want to be on a first name basis with a double murderer.
Right. Yeah. That Shirley Turner, when he posted the bail for Shirley Turner, that was him. He got a slap on the wrist from the College of the Physicians and Surgeons of Newfoundland and Labrador. And, of course, he was found guilty for professional misconduct for his involvement.
Like you would be.
Like you would. He was ordered to pay a fine of $10,000, covering 1/3 of the $30,000 incurred by the college for the inquiry. So the college even had to pay $30,000 for this inquiry to be made, and he was only ordered to pay a fine of $10,000. Anyways...
Oh my God.
Can't even. And also he was ordered to undergo psychiatric counseling after that. So a psychiatrist was ordered to go undergo psychiatric counseling. I mean, I don't know what good it's going to do, because obviously I don't think that he was doing as good a job as he could have been doing for Shirley. Then again, you know what? It does take two to tango, and maybe Shirley was gone past to the point of help. Who knows? And of course, on October 4th, the Turner report and investigation was released, and finding that Zachary's death was preventable and that the Newfoundland and Labrador social services system did not adequately adequately protect Zachary from his mother.
Yeah.
There should have been more done.
There should have been. And I don't think we mentioned this, which is
weird.
Really weird that we wouldn't have mentioned it.
Mention everything.
My God. I think she tried to frame someone for the murder of Zachary and herself.
Ooh.
She left a tampon.
Right. Okay, rewind back to the date that she was in the car now driving out to Perrins Lane in CVS, and she sat in her car with Zachary probably strapped into the back seat.
Screaming and bawling because he hates his mother and wants to be with his grandmother.
Like you would. So she does, what again? I can't remember.
She called, so this was a guy that she had met downtown. They had went out twice. So downtown is George Street for anyone not from Newfoundland. And it has like the most bars in the like
tiniest,
shortest little street.
It's a lot of fun. We should go down sometime.
We should. And anyway, so she met this guy on George Street. She harassed and called like hundreds of times, and he rejected her because his buddy said, look her up, Google her. They Googled her.
Right.
And then he realized who she was, and he said, I don't want anything to do with this.
I think, in fact, he actually also called the police, but didn't leave
his name?
No, he didn't do a formal
complaint.
Exactly. He didn't place a formal complaint. So her name didn't get flagged.
Yeah.
Through the jigs and the reels.
The jigs and the reels. Anyway, so then she drives to his house. I'm not 100% if she was in the house or outside of the house, but basically left pictures of herself and Zachary, left tampon there.
A used tampon.
I
don't understand what effect that would give to a crime scene.
Just a shit ton of DNA.
Like,
I don't know.
I don't get it.
I think she took it out. I feel like she left it at his house because that was proof that she left it in the car. I thought she left it on his lawn.
She left this in the car. Let me go back. Let me do it. Okay. Then Turner parked her car near his house.
Right.
And left photographs of herself and Zachary, as well as the used tampon on the front seat of the car. On the front seat, like in her vehicle. I was like, oh, I'll leave this here.
What in the actual fuck?
I don't know. So apparently, I don't know.
Anyways, gross.
Sorry if I gave everyone too much information for what I thought maybe she was going through, but I really don't know.
We don't know. But anyways, so I think that
that pretty well sums the case up, but I think that I want to just touch on a couple things as well. That what some people said about Shirley when they worked with her at school. A lot of people are tossing around the word psychopath. I'm not a psychologist. I will not claim to be a psychologist. I will claim to have read some things about psychology.
What's that on your wall, though? Isn't that your PhD?
It's my PhD in bullshit. So basically, people are saying that essentially Shirley was a psychopath. Yep. And these are the things that kind of can pinpoint where we're getting this idea of why we think she's a psychopath. So she displayed, number one, superficial charm. Very friendly with people, a lot of likes to laugh, enjoys time, but it's all superficial because really deep down on her, she's like seething with jealousy and spite. She displays a grandiose sense of self-worth. So she's better than everyone. She thinks she can tell lies to the cops and get away with it. They're stupid. They don't know. Like, I obviously was at home sick when he got murdered. She was conning and manipulative. Obviously, we don't need to get into that one because she was. She pathologically lied, like we said, to the cops. She led a parasitic lifestyle. She displayed a lack of empathy and poor behavioral control. That's obvious, especially when it comes to, maybe let's not murder my son. So I don't have any empathy for the fact that he'll never have a life, and neither will I hurt the family of his grandparents and my family, my own personal family. And obviously poor behavioral control, because if I can't stop myself from jumping into an ocean, then there you go. She lacked a sense of what realistic long-term goals would be. So just an understanding of what a realistic long-term goal would have been for her. She thought that her and Andrew were going to be together forever. And several, articles that I read, she thought that she was, they were going to be together forever. She wanted to be involved in his family's life. I'm sorry, you just murdered him. That's a great long-term goal. I don't see where you're going on with that.
She should just taxidermy a dog and be done with it.
She should have just get some roadkill, do what you gotta do. And finally, she never admitted once to accepting responsibility for her actions in killing Andrew.
Never.
So she never said she did it. We know she did it.
We know she did it. Justice failed everyone in this situation.
Yeah. Yes, 100%.
Anyways,
Dun, 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 dun.
should we talk about next week?
Let's talk about next week. Alicia, I'm so excited for next week.
Next week, it's just so creepy.
Oh my God, there's Newfoundland. You got a lot to talk about. We have a lot to talk about, Newfoundland. Next week, we're going to be covering the Warbury murder.
Yes.
So I'm sure you guys remember the case, but don't dig too deep because we're going to do all the research for you.
And we're going to tell you about it next week.
That's right. Alicia,
Andrea,
it's been a slice.